There's no good version of me.
We build our own prisons. Bars forged of oaths, codes, and commitments. Walls of self-doubt and accepted limitation. We inhabit these cells, these identities, and call them us. Jinx has been told who to be her entire life, she feels. As Powder, it was a constant battle to prove that she had worth and value. To prove that she belonged, that she shouldn't be left behind. As Jinx, that battle continued, but who she was trying to prove it to changed. Her propensity for violence, for chaos, for destruction, that was how she protected herself. Self-defense, in order to gain that validation she always sought. For Silko, Jinx was perfect. He gave her responsibility, and it was his mission to prove to the girl that she was indeed perfect, just as Jinx. But no matter what, even though she owned that name and repurposed it, Jinx has always been a prisoner. And her warden is her self-hatred. And when she becomes responsible for killing Silko, her cell only grows larger. When we meet Jinx in the second season, as she says it, the world around her is silent. There is no one to tell her what to do anymore or who to be. There's no one to pick her up and to tell her she's perfect. Jinx has never had to live life for any purpose other than to try and be useful. With Vi and with Vander, she was too young for that autonomy, and with Silko, she went out of her way at all times to prove that worth. Now the girl is alone and empty. Jinx even believes that Zaun's downfall is her fault, that she is a curse unleashed on her family, her friends, even a society. So early on in this season, Jinx turns to apathy. Apathy and a tiny bit of anarchy. The lyrics accompanying Jinx's first walk through the Undercity in that second episode say, "Good luck killing me because I'm already dead inside." As she says, the only thing left for her to do is to watch it all burn. Jinx doesn't have an immediate and burning desire to die, but as we see in her fight with Vi in the third episode, and as we saw after her fight against Ekko in the first season, she's always been ready for it. But in her isolation and seclusion, the girl still shows signs of life, signs of a desire to live. In the time that we've known Jinx, she's never reached out to another person. She's never made an effort to really befriend or support someone else. She's always been so occupied dealing with her own mind, and plus, everyone who gets close to her dies, right? But she tries her hand with Sevika early on. They bond over Silko, and Jinx fixes her arm. The girl who has broken everything in her life, fixing things grounds her a little bit, gives her direction. And fixing something for somebody is how she shows her love. It makes her feel valuable and worthy. There's this autonomy that Jinx has this season that's quite important for her arc, because she now has to confront the reality of existing. Making choices, being wrong or right, growing and learning because of these moments. And Sevika, who's watched Jinx grow, she's seen all of the girl's volatile tendencies and actions, and still she finds herself able to trust Jinx. In addition to Sevika, of course, there's Isha. Isha sees Jinx as everything that she can't imagine about herself. A model, a fighter, a hero. In a place like the Undercity, hope is hard to come by, especially given the state it's in when they meet. But for the child, this blue-haired hero gives her that hope. Jinx is everything she wants to be, and Jinx, upon realizing that there is someone who looks up to her, I think inspires Jinx to become in some ways the champion that Isha sees her as. It heals her. Like Jinx says, Isha reminds her of that girl she abandoned, Powder. Jinx gives Isha everything she did and didn't have as a child. Reassurance, acceptance. Jinx doesn't tell Isha to sever any part of herself, but instead empowers her to be confident in who she is. Isha is, in a way, healing Jinx's inner child. She is coloring Jinx's world, making things clear for Jinx, and the parallels are there. In the same mirror that had her contemplating her fractured identities, struggling to feel worthy, she returns to it smiling at what looks quite like her younger self. I think she also gains greater sympathy for Vi and what she went through as an older sister, given their now similar roles. While she does seem to be in a much better place, Jinx cannot fathom or accept really that she can be a hero. that she is a symbol of rebellion that Zahn and that Isha sees her as. These great titles, this kind of support, they are reserved for people who aren't as, quote, cursed as she is. They are reserved for people like Vander, like Silko for her. She doesn't want to lose Isha, so she doesn't want to do anything that'll possibly jeopardize this relationship. That's how afraid she is of herself. But when Isha gets captured, she can overcome herself and save Isha and the rebels of Zahn. And I think that moment of being touched and seen by all of those people gave her hope that there was some goodness in her, that she could actually escape that prison of self-doubt and limitation. Having been given confirmation by Isha and all of those people, she then reaches out to Vi, one episode after deciding to move on from being so reliant on Silko's guidance. Of course, there were still moments of doubt, but Jinx again shows a great amount of autonomy and courage in the second act, and it becomes evident for both sisters that they were never truly ready to give up on each other and their relationship, and they still have so much love for each other, that family still means a lot to them, and that they are both willing to put in the work to rebuild this relationship. We see that especially when Jinx begs Vi to trust her about Vander, and when Vi actually does, though she had every reason not to. Jinx is fighting a constant internal battle, but in Act 2 she was winning. The girl who lost Milo, Clagor, Vander, Silko, still has hope that she can be better. Isha is so important when talking about Jinx's story and changing the view of herself. But of course, the good times never last in Arcane, and the hands of fate will show themselves one way or another, culminating in Isha's sacrifice to save the family that she had just found. In Act 3, the contrast between the brilliant Powder in the 7th episode and Jinx in the 8th is so jarring. Jinx is at her lowest, the lowest we've ever seen her. The inherent desire to live that Silko once spoke about doesn't exist in the girl anymore. She's not apathetic, she's not just going through the motions, waiting for that sweet embrace to take her. No, Jinx is now actively spiraling and ready to take her own life. There aren't any more words that Violet can tell her. This creation of Silko from her own mind, nothing reaches her. Jinx has accepted what she is. Once close to escaping her cell and freeing herself from the prison of her own identity, she's now further than she's ever been. I'm done running in circles, she says. There's no good version of me. There are no happy endings. Jinx has always had hope that she could fix things, fix herself, and prove her worth. That possibility was always there, even throughout her bouts of psychosis, her hallucinations. At her lowest, there was always a chance. But she finds herself as the common denominator in every single situation when she loses someone she loves. Isha saw Jinx as a hero, but that meant that she idolized Jinx in her entirety. Her propensity for chaos, violence, destruction, her desire to self-destruct. And so of course, Jinx would blame herself for even putting Isha in this situation. Of course, she would blame herself for losing Vander a second time. Jinx has been leading up to this the entire series. From the very beginning, when she begged Vi not to leave her, she had all of these reasons for being good enough. When she was by Silko's side, she proved herself as someone who is capable. Now Jinx has finally run out of reasons. She's run out of excuses explaining her worth. She is a Jinx, that's it. Self-doubt is baked into her DNA, it's in her wiring. So now there's only one choice. We then get the aforementioned appearance and conversation from Silko, who is, quote, too late, and he tells her to break the cycle, to walk away. She cannot break the cycle of killing by killing herself. She has simply removed herself, but not the key component of the cycle. Silko himself said that he tried to eliminate his jailers. He tried to kill his way out of the cycle, but it did not work. Ekko finds this girl on the edge, literally, in a state where she might not have even realized that Ekko was real. What a shock it must have been for Ekko to see Jinx in this state, and what a contrast from the girl that he just saw. Ekko met the best, quote, version of her, and now he meets her at her absolute lowest, at her worst, truly. And we know their history. Children of the Undercity, best friends growing up. I can only remember how she mockingly called him the boy savior, back on the bridge in their last encounter. She said it with a tone that had a bit of resentment in it, perhaps a bit envious of how different her path was than Ekko's.
Look who it is, the boy savior.
From the deleted scenes, writer Amanda Overton said that Ekko tried to save Jinx before, but she rejected his help, hence the title. Imagine you hear talk about Jinx and how she's Silko's daughter, but you know her real family, her real father, and even she is rejecting it. How much that must hurt. And she slapped him in the face in the same way that Vi slapped her. It's the kind of tone that could have dissuaded Ekko from ever trying to save or to help anybody else. Jinx killed some of the Firelights, Ekko's friends and found family. She helped spread shimmer across the entire Undercity, Silko's right hand. Ekko has seen this girl transform in front of his eyes. He's seen every step of it. He once claimed that Powder was no more, that there was only Jinx. But on that bridge, he found himself seeing that girl once again, and found himself unable to finish the job. That led to the bombing of Piltover by Jinx, and it led to the Firelights' hideout being at capacity. It led to the Undercity being in disarray. All of this, all a result of this one girl. And yet, here Ekko is, risking his life to simply talk to her. He sees a girl, a friend, who needs love. Jinx, on the edge, is met by someone who she sees as good. So it's an incentive to listen. She probably questioned for a moment why somebody as good as the boy's savior, someone who she's hurt, can still see the good in her when she only sees a hole, emptiness and darkness. They are not family, they aren't blood. Ekko is the perfect person to fill this role because she's hurt him. He has no reason to be hopeful or even to care about her anymore, but he calls her someone worth building something new for. Ekko doesn't just see Powder anymore. He doesn't just care for Powder anymore. He simply cares for the girl throughout all of her identities, for the person he knows that she can be. Ekko wants to help Jinx see what everyone else sees in her. Jinx is loved. She is loved by so many, but she just can't see that. She is unable to fathom that people can love someone who is broken, someone who is imperfect. We don't hear the conversation, but co-creator of Arcane, Christian Link, says that Ekko convinces her about this other version of Powder that exists, and as we see her in her brand new design, and this brand new person, it doesn't feel as though he tried to convince Jinx to be Powder. I think that Ekko, like he says it, believes in the inherent goodness of this girl. He understands that Powder and Jinx are one and the same, and that she is worth a second chance. Not that he wants to fix her, or turn her into the one from the other universe, but that this version of Jinx can still become a good version of herself. He just had to help her see that, and that's all that she needed to hear. That she is worthy of life, and good enough to be loved. She killed Powder in the river because Silko told her that Powder was weak, and now she wants to kill Jinx because she believes Jinx is no good. Rotten. In her mind, it was either the Powder that wasn't good enough, or the Jinx that destroys everything. There could not exist any other version of her. Ekko is the catalyst to giving her that hope again, but everything that she went through in this season led her to these moments, to this person. Because she was already able to experience being something other than a Jinx, it's not so foreign to her anymore. She was an older sister this season, a model to aspire to, a friend. She knows what it feels like to be a hero. She can imagine a different version of herself. Ekko only showed her the possibility. It was up to her to take that step forward, and he just helped her build it. Arcane has always been about how powerful the force of love is, and we see it on display here. Jinx and Ekko's new designs are representations of how they've changed, and how they've chosen love. They've marked each other's bodies and clothes. They've swapped clothes and signature. The X's on both of their crop tops and clothes, the shared graffiti on them. Jinx's pink lines underneath her eyes look like Powder's once upon a time, and they look like Isha's. Not to mention the purple streaks of Jinx's hair, which could be alluding to the combination of her and Vi's hair color, as well as the look altogether just resembles her big sister's. Jinx carries everybody that she loves with her. She carries Jinx and Powder with her. But this ultimately is someone new. The only way to break the cycle is to walk away, but for Jinx, it's more than just walking away. For Jinx, it's this renewal, this rebirth that will save her. To rebuild and to reinvent herself, that's the only way she's going to make it out of her prison. by leaving some things behind. Her new design, mainly those braids, is a representation of her leaving some things behind. An identity can be a prison. You start to tell yourself that you are a Jinx, that you are unlovable, and you will become it. You will believe it. In Jinx's case, you add on being a child of war with this intense fear of abandonment. In her mind, the identity that everyone else assigned to her, she began to believe it. And you will self-sabotage everything in your life so that you can become what you think you are, what you have been told you are. And that is what Silko is saying. Many times we build these identities up all by ourselves, and we cage ourselves in it. I recently read this quote by author Julian Smith, and they write that your personality is not set in stone. You can change what you want about yourself at any time. If it is useful to do so, they write, you must abandon your identity and start again. Sometimes it's the only way. Set fire to your old self, they write. And sometimes you just need someone to tell you the way that they see you, which can shock your world and change your life. So when facing Vander with Vi, Jinx realizes that this cycle is one that both she and Vi suffer from. Violet also has her own guilt and self-loathing that she deals with through violence and drinking. Issues that stem back related to Powder and Vander. She too has grief that she hasn't addressed. She too needs to let go, to move forward. And Jinx finds her sister unable to, so Jinx takes it off her plate. She chooses to become her big sister's hero. Vi has always fought for Jinx, and now here she is trying to return that favor. Jinx finally faces, quote, death, but it isn't under the same circumstances that it was in the past. Like with Ekko on the bridge, or with Vi and Zahn, it's not self-destructive, but it's not redemption either. It is simply a sacrifice, one that is made out of a pure love. And again, that's what this series has always been about. Love. To quote Victor, it is that which inspires our greatest good and the cause of our greatest evil. Whenever Jinx acted out, was it not out of a desire to be loved? An act to prove that she deserved love? Is that not what she's always been after? Now, assuming Jinx is alive, she can walk away from the cycle a blank slate. She doesn't have to protect herself or hide behind a persona to be accepted anymore. She now has the chance to create something new. Not Powder that she washed away years ago, and not the Jinx that she believed she was. Someone new. Jinx was never perfect, nor was Powder. Neither is Vi or Ekko or any of them. But Jace says that there is beauty in imperfections, that they make you who you are. Jinx had many people who saw that beauty, and for so long she was unable to see that within herself. And now she is on a journey to discover who she can become. Not someone perfect, but instead someone good. A good version of herself.